Hey, Connor here of Neversink Farm, and today I wanted to go over my tool rack. Made some changes to it this year based on some new tools, and thought you might want to check it out. So this is the greenhouse tool rack. I also have a field tool rack. It's pretty much the same. It just may have some more of each tool, more duplicates and stuff, because we may have more people working at the same time, so you need a bit more tools. But essentially it's the same. I like to keep the tools right near where I'm going to be doing work and my workers are going to be doing work, so they're really easily accessible. I also like to have duplicates of tools, so I don't have to carry one from here to there and back and forth, or have workers waiting for a tool. And I also keep some information on the board so that people can work independently and be able to do what they need to do. So let's first take a look at the, we'll go from one end to the other and see what we got here. So this is my path rake, and this is used on the paths in between crops to rake up some extra stuff. And I made it from another rake. I just cut it. Then we have stirrup hoes, but these I use for turning over beds, removing crops, sometimes for cultivating the edges of houses. But I don't use them in my cultivation practice. They're not a cultivator really. They're more of a big weeder or something, but they're really nice for turning over crops. Have both short handle and long handle ones. This is the section I use for cultivation, which is the wheel hoe for the paths. And then I have all the long handled tools, so collinears and wire weeders and torsion weeders. And an offset. And I keep a whole bunch of extras so that people can work all at the same time. So if you're using, let's say, collinears from Johnny's, you probably have a few, maybe 3 of the narrow, 3 of the wide, so that you can have a bunch of people cultivating at the same time. Since I'm using the Mutineers, I only need the handle and then a bunch of heads. This is a change from this year. I just changed it up. So I had, a bunch of collinears lined up and a bunch of wire hose lined up. But I switched to this. It made it a lot easier for me because now I only need the heads. So I just put in these little snazzy things because, these don't have a place to, usually hanging by the tool head or something. These are pennies. These are very cheap, and they hold the tool really, really well. But one pointer is when you buy these things, they come in different sizes, like small, medium, large. So you want to check what size your handle is so that it works correctly, and then you get the right squeeze on it and for it to stay. Get a lot of wind here, and I hate when tools blow off. So that's the cultivation section. The wheel hoe. Then the long-handled precision cultivators. Don't use weeders around here, but just precision cultivators. And then the broad fork, which I'm using less and less of. But in the spring, if things are really compacted, then keep the broad fork here. On the field tool rack, we have about 3 of these, so that people can broad fork all at once. With my sign about not removing rocks with it. That we use the shovel for. Then I just hang the zipper over the top, and this I use for planting corms and planting the end of paper pot rows and short paper pot rows. Some like large seeded stuff. And then this series of gritters. Because I don't like to switch up the handles, I just have a handle for each one except for the big 6x6, which we don't use as often. And then above the gritters I use for laying out planting rows. So you may have a dibbler, you may have, something, whatever you're using to lay out straight planting rows, as well as a diagram for how someone needs to plant. So I'll just write down for somebody, the 2x2 or 2x3, and then they can look at here and see how they're going to plant. So I don't need to describe it. So I keep that up on the tool rack for when they grab the right gritter, the 3 gritter, they can look, oh, okay, that's how he wants me to plant it using this gritter. And then after that, we have all of our bed strings, kite loops. And this we use for straight plantings or when we're laying out plantings. I have bed stakes on either side of our beds, and then these will go onto the bed stakes, and this way we can plant straight, pretty much for planting and seeding straight. So I can use the seeder alongside of this and make sure I get a nice even planting and don't plant in the rows. It's that I don't plant in the paths. And I keep extra bed stakes always on the tool rack, as well as a template. So I have a template for setting in those bed stakes that people can use. Okay, and then finally on this front face, which this front face is really about tools that I'm using really often, that workers are using really often. So that's why it's on the front side of the tool rack, as well as a list of all the tools that are here. And then at the end of every day, one of the workers has to go read the list and make sure all the tools are back on the tool rack. Right? And we do that for this. We don't do it for buckets. Don't care if all the buckets aren't back, but as long as all the tools are back out of the rain, then we're good to go. Then around the back, I have tools that, sort of the bigger tools, used more by me, or maybe people who have been here longer. And that'll be the tilther for spreading out amendments so that they're nice and even. On top of a bed, you'll spread amendments, and then this will help work it into the top inch, as well as make it even. Then a flame weeder, ready to go, tank on it, sparker ready to go, wrench to put another tank on. We usually have a couple of tanks ready to go, but not for the greenhouse one. We don't use it as often in the greenhouses, so but the field rack will have 2 or 3 tanks ready to go, so that the flame weeder can always just be taken off and used. I even have workers use it. If you're turning over a bed, there's a lot of small weeds, they just grab it and go ahead and burn the bed. Then there's the harvest containers, so a belly bucket, shoulder bags ready to go. Bed rake I don't really use much anymore, but it's there. Paper pot transplanter, give it a nice bit of space to stay out of the rain in the back here. Then of course the bed roller, right, to smooth out the bed. So if you just tilt it and you need a little bite for the seating, or if you're using a pinpoint seater and it's got, it's not closing it's not closing the channels that it's, the trenches that it's making for the seeds, then the bed roller will help close it up. So that's the tool rack. That's pretty much all the tools we're using really regularly. The seeders I like to keep out of the rain, and the ones that are on a tool rack I keep on the field tool rack. But this is pretty much 90% of the tools I use. And like I said, it's nice having a bunch of them, it really changed the farm. I know when we had one of everything, it was slowing us down immensely. Even when it was just me and my wife Kate, you know, just having 2 cultivators made a big difference. And then when you have multiple size cultivators, now you need 2 of 2, but it would help us to just move faster. Because it's nice to have a bunch of people cultivating together or a bunch of people planting together, and they all need those tools. So I just keep a good amount of them. It's an incredible and good investment to not only have them organized, but have duplicates of them and have a decent tool rack. And it doesn't take a lot to build one of these. You know, it's pretty easy, and you have a nice organized place to put everything. And the bigger your farm is, the more you'll need of them.